Okay, welcome Canada. And of course, the lawyers hired by whatever Muslim Brotherhood front group that are here watching this to sue me. I wonder how much money has this show made? Not for me, but for like the people paid to monitor the show. Who knows? Anyways, moving on. Number one story in Canada, we're going to have to cover Bill C-10, which is basically Trudeau's mess up the internet law. It's going to need like some explaining and then some not explaining because it's very, very hyper vague, which is a problem. So we'll go into that. Then I want to talk about John Kerry and the Obama administration and sort of, hardcore political rhetoric, but like when it needs to apply. So right now I'm actually going to advocate for a former Secretary of State to face the prospect of the death penalty for treason. And how sort of always screaming out, this is treason, and Obama's a traitor, and Hillary's a traitor, or Bush is a traitor, and everyone I don't like is a war criminal. How this actually hurts the debate, because now we actually need to have a serious conversation of, should we execute John Kerry, or should America execute John Kerry? Now, I just think life in prison, but I think this needs to be a very serious conversation, because former Obama admin officials are leaking information to Iran, and what was being said, and this is even being reported in the New York Times. So it's not just friggin', oh, it's rebel news, so we can blah, 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 blah. Like, no, this is New York Times. It's a paper of record. So, like, my aunts and uncles have to believe this is real because it's in the New York Times. You have to. It's the law. When it's in the New York Times, it has to be real because they've never lied about anything in their life. Then I want to talk about COVID. Okay, so the C-19, it looks like I got this prediction wrong. I kind of predicted that that because everything was sort of waning, especially in America, in Canada not so much, but because the vaccines are rolling out, states are reopening, and everything was coming back to life as Trump was, ending up his first term. I thought they're going to do this thing where they swap in Biden. Biden's going to do one COVID law, pass the COVID bill, and then everyone is going to pretend, oh, look, Biden's making it better. Biden is fixing it. Thank God the science is in charge. Praise science. Ha la 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 la. Oh, to science. Da 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 da. Science. Okay. Now, that's not the case. It's they look like they're like, ooh, emergency powers. We can never give it up. So we'll talk about those. So the three big things. Then we'll have a talk about sort of vaccine efficacy rates and all that. All right. So story numero unois. I speak lots of Spinolio. Okay. So COVID coming and going. We have, what do I mean, COVID? Something worse, a worse disease. The Trudeau administration, the worst disease you can think of. What the worst thing we could think about is probably the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. So more dangerous than COVID-19 mixed with smallpox, attached to a North Korean nuke is Justin Trudeau and his his buddy Stéphane Gébert, who is the heritage minister in charge of destroying our Canadian heritage. So I guess Chris Payne asked, have you heard of Bill C-10? We're going to talk about Bill C-10 right now. Okay. So I'm glad I actually trended on Twitter. It's actually getting some pushback from the mainstream media establishment, which means like there might actually be a chance of defeating this. Of course, Pierre Poilievre made a video about it, called it a hammer to intimidate freedom of speech. He even cited that expression from a former director of the CRTC. Okay. So what is Bill C-10 designed to do? Like, let's put on, everyone, take a hammer, whack yourself in the head, or find some way to lose 20 to 25 IQ points. You're now a liberal, all right? So here's what the bill is supposed to do, right? Again, just take a hammer, whack yourself in the head, and just believe me when I speak to you as Justin Trudeau. See, the point of this bill is, broadcasting has been done, traditionally in Canada for years, and we've always had Canadian regulations around Canadian broadcasting standards. We've had the CRTC as a broadcasting monitor, forever, and their job is to promote Canadian content in the Canadian population, blah, 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 Canadian. This is really a pro-Canada bill, because who loves Canada more than Justin Trudeau and friends? Okay. So the best case scenario for this bill, I mean, if we're going to steel man the argument for Bill C-10, what it does is it puts YouTube and other social media sites under the broadcast authority of the CRTC. So, like, absolute best case scenario, if this gets passed, is it's just, government bureaucrats now have the ability to sort of treat the internet and YouTube the same way they treat, cable news broadcasters, right? They get to choose, what channels can come on, what advertising can be, they promote Canadian content. You certainly need a certain amount of Canadian content. But the problem is, like, what constitutes Canadian content? Like there are movies filmed in Canada with Canadian actors that don't count as Canadian, but then there's like Canadian. Then there's like films like foreign funded with like a Canadian director who like is run out of a shell company in Canada, filmed in India, and that counts as Canadian. So it's an absolute cluster F-bomb, okay, of what constitutes Canadian content. But let's just, let's say I'm the one who's supposedly going to benefit from this, because, this video is made in Canada. This video is about Canadian politics. This video is directed at Canadians, by a Canadian, for Canadians, to Canadians, and some Americans. And also, hello to the Indian people in this audience, although they don't usually watch it this time, because India's over there. Okay. Hypothetically, I stand to benefit from Bill C-10 the most. Hypothetically, I'm not crazy enough to actually think I will. But I'm a Canadian content creator, so the best case scenario for what this bill purports to do, and what the rhetoric around what Trudeau are claiming it is, and we'll go into why it's not, is it would just give the CRTC the same, it would treat, YouTube just like we treat, Bell and Rogers, blah, 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 right? So what it would do, in best case scenario, if you're watching this on YouTube, right, it would curate your YouTube things. Like, they could theoretically say every Canadian must be subscribed to CBC. Like every Canadian would be to subscribe to CBC video. By the way, CBC you ever notice that CBC's YouTube comments always disabled? Every time there's a CBC video, comments always disabled. No Canadian, like 8,000 downvotes, 45 upvotes, like comments disabled. That's every CBC video ever. Okay, so theoretically they could force you to subscribe to Canadian content, right? They can cure your trending list. To curate it to good Canadian content. Now, okay, the absolute best case scenario, and what they purport to do, is just, it would be Canadian stuff that's Canadian. But I think everyone who's watched the show long enough knows that the CRTC regulator under a Trudeau administration would not look at me as good Canadian content. No, I think I make good, high-quality content. I think I try and cover Canadian issues in a heterodox way. I don't always agree with the left, don't always agree with the right. Some people are going to be very mad at me for my, what I think is some pretty good data on the vaccines preliminarily. Some people are going to be mad at me because I basically, I'm going to make the case that Obama and Obama's entire administration was a disaster, a moral disaster, right? So people will be blah, 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 blah. But I'm not naive enough to think that the censors are going to treat me well. And even if they did, even if this bill was specifically designed to just, push Canadian content on YouTube to Canadians, and I would be showing up more likely in your trending boxes, like you'd be more likely to see me as a Canadian YouTube content creator over like Ben Shapiro or whatever, right? You're more likely to get, Canadians are now, would recommend Daniel Boorman over Ben Shapiro. And, I stand to benefit from this because more people would see me over him. I still don't want this enact. Like, I don't want the government involved in our YouTube, or I don't even want the CRTC involved in the standard cable, but it's sort of built in there. Now we get to the point of, do we really think a CRTC government bureaucrat is going to be able to handle all of this, friggin', what's good, what's not? Like, it's one thing on cable news channels where it's like, there's a specific amount of channels, like now there's hundreds of them, but every show has people and lawyers behind it, and they go to script and they have connections, they can get everything kind of passed and everyone comes to law. But like, do you really think government bureaucrats can sift through every YouTube channel and decide what is good Canadian content, what is not? Like, this might just mean YouTube puts in some silly questionnaires for people to fill out in Canada to sort of, yeah, Donna makes a good point. This is another reason why you get VPN. So if you want to click the NordVPN link in the description below, I'm not sure if we put it in this time. Oops. But yeah, this is if you're a Canadian, right, this is a great reason to get a VPN, to just bypass these new Canadian laws. Now, it might hurt me as a Canadian content creator because I want to sort of put in, okay, the link is there, I've heard. Okay, so Trudeau wants the internet content to coincide with what Canadians think is good for Canadians. Do you think he can do that? I don't. All right, so yeah, this is kind of what I'm going to address going on further is, so it's not just the pure content creators. Like, I can understand, I think it's more like a horn. I can understand how this law is meant to stop me or to curate me. Because, like, I do this for a living. I come up here. I'm like, hey, here's my opinion on a thing. C10. This is what it is. This is like, I'm putting out comments and videos on YouTube all the time. But there was a part of this law originally where it said, it's not meant to sort of pertain to individual Canadian posting, like the individual, right? So your comments on this YouTube video, your comments on the Facebook video, your comment, you make a short little Twitter video of like, hey everyone, I'm just outside Macy's and they got shoes that are half off, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't meant to be in it originally. And they pushed that. Oh, no, conservatives are scaremongering about this. It's not about that. Then they had a private thing, and they actually amended the bill to take that part out where they're like, no, everything. So it's not just me now. It's everything Canadians put on the internet, especially on YouTube, but now like Twitter videos, Twitter posts, everything would be under CRTC regulation. So is it the Trudeau government that would be regulating you? Not necessarily. It's something even worse. It's the general bureaucracy of the Canadian government. And if you trust the general bureaucracy, you're a crazy person. You're actually mentally deficient. Now, you probably haven't made it through 10 minutes of this video because this isn't your thing. And I understand most people on this video are probably like, yes, I obviously don't trust a government bureaucrat to decide what is good when it is good. And God bless you for it. So we have a problem here where CTAN basically says, no, everyone must follow it. So what does so here's the problem of like, it must be good Canadian content. And there's like a point system. It's so convoluted. And that's the problem. So hypothetically, should I be benefiting from this? Yes, I should be benefiting from C10 as a Canadian content creator who creates content on Canadian issues in Canada. Theoretically, this would be great for me. Theoretically, I'm the person who stands to benefit, right? You search Ben Shapiro, the Canadian Justin Trudeau. Sorry, did you mean Canadian fast-talking Jew, Daniel Boardman? Theoretically, that's my jam. But I don't trust the CRTC regulator to like watch this show in its entirety and say, yeah, this is acceptable. And if there is a couple of them out there, fine. But do you really think everyone at the CRTC, everyone was like, what do I want to do for a job? I want to be a censorious government bureaucrat. Yay! How many of those people are fans of Uninterrupted? Right? And even if you are, let's say this is sometime in the future, and you're either a Muslim Brotherhood lawyer or you're a CRTC bureaucrat deciding if this video is good. Message to CRTC bureaucrat watching the video right now. I hope your family suffers through plagues, biblical plagues. I hope your house is flooded with frogs. I hope there's just frogs everywhere. I get all the plagues, except maybe the first and last one. I'm not going to wish death on your children. Although I do hope they get lice and boils. Like, I hope all your cattle die. I hope all your cattle die and locusts eat all your food. Seriously, I do. No, I'm not joking. I hope your house is overwhelmed with frogs and you all get boils and you're very itchy all the time. Just a lifetime of itchiness as you go outside and get pelted by hail. This is exactly what I am wishing upon you and your family forever. Not just your children, but your children's children and your children's children's children. I hope all of them are itchy, filled with boils, scratching themselves, dead cattle forever. Biblical plagues. That's what I wish upon you. So, am I going to get, am I going to get, friggin' loved by the CRTC bureaucrats? Probably not. Right? Probably not. Probably they see some of the content. It's like, oh, this is innocuous. Like, what are we watching? Oh, okay, here he is, talking about windmills in Canada. No, okay, fine. And then I'm like, all right, and here's how the Muslim Brotherhood works in Canada. No! Oh, no! Okay. So, can we stop it? Yeah. Now, I do think there's a good chance of stopping. It did trend on Twitter today. It is getting some mainstream media people to actually talk about it, which is good. Pierre Poilievre has started a petition against it, which is good. So I did sign Pierre's thingamajig. I'm not sure what that will do. It's probably official. It gives Pierre a good hammer to attack him for. Now, I like Pierre's video. And Pierre said, me, Aaron O'Toole, and the Shadow Minister of Heritage, some Diaz or whatever his face is. Again, see, I want to rant. This is why you don't demote Pierre Poilievre, because he's the only friggin' Shadow Minister people can name, except maybe Michelle Rempel, health critic. Michelle, Michelle Rempel will sometimes hide in a hole for 2 weeks when it is an important issue. Then it's like, okay, and Trudeau didn't get enough vaccines. Okay, that's safe for me to be like, oh, I'm going to attack Justin Trudeau because he didn't do enough vaccines. And it's like, okay. So, but Pierre's great. Pierre's great on all the issues, very consistent. I almost swore, and I think, because this is live, can't say the F-bombs on the YouTubes. I don't get strikes for the live stream and F-bombs, but they'll send me an email in like 2 days, be like, Mr. Boardman, you said a swear, and we're not going to give you a strike for it, but like, watch your filthy mouth, you dirty, dirty boy. You dirty boy. It's exactly what YouTube sends me. Okay, going off on a tangent. Pierre's on it. Where is Aaron O'Toole? Earth to Aaron. Earth to Aaron. I'm going to go to his Twitter feed right now. This is trending today. This is a great thing for Aaron O'Toole to hammer, internet censorship. Why would Aaron O'Toole not want to ramble on about internet censorship? Well, that's I just saw a funny tool about a tweet about Aaron O'Toole from Ezra Levant that he put out today. It says Aaron O'Toole is the Andrew Scheer of Patrick Browns, and I think that joke was directed right at me. Okay, so General Vance stuff, again, sexual harassment. I think I kind of explained the Vance thing and why he's not Trudeau on suspending his 2 MPs. Nothing on it. Next budget, like, and I know like Twitter fields not the appropriate thing, but like Aaron O'Toole like always getting ratioed on Twitter. Like what a fool. Oh, okay. April 27th. Here we go again. BC10 is another attempt by Liberals to restrict freedom of speech. I'll oppose it at every stage of this legislative process. Okay. All right. So here's Aaron O'Toole sharing a National Post article about the assault on free speech from the National Post. Okay. You know what? There you go. One tweet from Aaron O'Toole. Everyone, stand up. Stand up. We're gonna have a 4-minute standing ovation for Aaron O'Toole for actually taking a moderate stance on freedom of speech and censorship. Very good. Just keep clapping. Everyone keep clapping for Aaron O'Toole. He did it. He did it. He did it. Keep in mind, he just filed another lawsuit against me through another one of his proxies for reporting on his campaign. But, just keep clapping because Aaron O'Toole is such a champion of free speech. Now, if you want to support me and my fight against Aaron O'Toole and his attempts to censor free speech, there's Patreon and PayPal and whatever in the description. But just keep standing and clapping because Aaron O'Toole, warrior out there for free speech. He made a tweet, guys. He made one tweet. One tweet, guys. Guys, Aaron O'Toole is going to save us. He's so, true blue conservatism right now. I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of conservatism we're getting from Aaron O'Toole. He's going to oppose this bill at every stage. Every stage. That's why Aaron O'Toole is out there. Who fights cancel culture better than Aaron O'Toole? Oh my God, what a man, what a guy, what a champ, what a, I'm just blown away. The singular tweet from Aaron O'Toole against Bill C-10. Guys, you know what? There's really, I take back every criticism I ever had about Aaron O'Toole. Like, there's no way this guy cannot be for free speech. Yes, he has 2 lawsuits against me for reporting on his campaign, but you know what? Also sued my family. But you know what? This guy's a real champion of free speech because he made a tweet about Bill C-610. And I thought he wouldn't make a tweet because, but one tweet about one issue on freedom of speech one time. Come on, guys, stand up. Stand up. I can't hear you clapping. Get one tweet, one time about one bill. Oh my God, Aaron O'Toole. Just, leading the charge. What a guy. You know what? I hope he wins so we can get an Aaron O'Toole carbon tax. This guy, he might be pro carbon tax and he might be against freedom of speech, but boy, is he alive. He's alive. He breathes. You know what, guys? Give it up for Aaron O'Toole because he breathes in oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide. Oh my God, what a guy. Guy can actually inhale oxygen and then exhale carbon dioxide. What a guy. Oh my God, Aaron O'Toole, what a champ. Standing ovation. Oh my God. Guy manages to actually oxygen, carbon dioxide. It's like he's magic. It's like he's actually magic. He's actually magic. What an absolute champ. Okay. So that's done. All right, so that's the Bill C-10. I had signed the thing. Tweet about it, write your thing. I did the thing. I made the video. Blah 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 blah. Like, share, subscribe. The whole. But like, share, subscribe to the anti-Bill C-10 thing on Twitter face. Yeah, tweet your face. Click the buttons. Okay, you know what to do. All right. So here's something that I want to talk about. I mean, this. You know what? Let's say this was the last story. The John Kerry stuff. Let's go out of order and let's talk about the COVIDcrats. So I got it wrong. This is, I was wrong on this prediction. If you remember my post, Joe Biden winning election take, one of my senses of like, okay, here's a potential silver lining to the Biden administration is with COVID waning down. I think what they will want to do is pass one COVID law, basically wave around a COVID stick and then say, ka-ching! And then declare that Joe Biden has solved COVID forever. He is the great man of science. so much science into Joe Biden. And because Joe Biden is sciencing the place up with all the science, COVID is over. And look, Joe Biden, you're allowed to go outside and have freedoms back because Joe Biden. Trump took them away. Joe Biden gave them back to you. Now, this would be an absolute lie. And you and I would be like, well, then it's more complicated, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be the case that the Bidocrats and the Democrats and the liberals and the CDC and all that, it looks like they love the emergency powers of COVID, and they don't want to give them up. Now, there's something to be said. This reminds me a lot of Kathleen Wynne being unable to balance the budget in her last year at office, even after she sold off all of Ontario's assets. So she sold off all her assets, and it's like, oh, frig, they're going to balance the budget in the last year or run a surplus by just tanking Ontario basically selling off 20 years of wealth for a 1 year to balance the budget. So they could say, look, the Conservatives went back into debt. We balanced the budget. They couldn't even balance the budget in the last term. So ha ha ha, stupid liberals. Now, this kind of reminds me of that. So, is this terrible? Yes. It's terrible that they're keeping us locked down forever, and I'd rather the lockdowns end. But from the silver lining here is long-term political game theory. They won't be able to portray themselves falsely as the party of freedom. So they will always sort of take on the mantle of the lockdownocrats, the censorious, we want power. So they won't be able to sort of portray themselves as this great science party that gave you your freedoms back. They won't be able to play that. So, long-term political machinations, we're talking 5-6 years down the road, they won't get the benefits of people thinking, well, they ended COVID and they gave us our freedoms back. And because we had to wear masks because of Trump, but then Biden came and we took them off. They won't be able to play that angle. Now, the horrible thing is, it looks like we're going to have to deal with the COVID nonsense way past its expiration date. I was about to say CDC, Center for Disease Control, they finally came out and said, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask outside. I don't wear masks outside anyway. No. Every day to me is the day after George Floyd's death. I'm always protesting George Floyd's death. That's why I never need to wear a mask outside. That's what you guys don't know, is if you're always protesting, if you just walk around like this, fist up, Black Lives Matter, you cannot get COVID. This is great science of COVID that people didn't realize, and I don't know why the CDC didn't tell you about this, but you actually cannot get COVID if you're constantly outside protesting the death of George Floyd. So how do I protest the death of George Floyd? I go and sometimes I buy groceries, and that's, for George. I'm out there at the grocery store protesting George Floyd's death. Sometimes I'm just out there to get some air. You think I need air? No, I just need to let people know that Black Lives Matter. Just walking around, can't get COVID if you're outside of your house purely to protest the death of George Floyd or to do a TikTok dance. If you want to dance on TikTok, you want to go, but it needs to be a coordinated dance. Right? If you need to be a coordinated dance, it needs to be ignoring dying people in a hospital also. You need to be, but can't get COVID, right? So the way you actually get it, you don't actually need a vaccine, because the way you can actually, this only gives you a month of immunities, but every month you cannot get COVID, and this is science. YouTube, censors, I am not being sarcastic here. There is zero sarcasm. This is 1000% legitimate medical advice coming from me, the authority on all medical advice that is actually higher than the CDC. You cannot get COVID, and you'll get your COVID immunities if you are doing a TikTok dance for George Floyd. So if you're doing a TikTok dance, right? George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd. You actually gives you a full immunity to COVID for an entire month. Full immunities. Can't get COVID, can't pass on COVID, can't even spell COVID. Okay? That's how it works. That is actual medical advice. YouTube, I am 1000% serious. That is medical advice. Both my parents are doctors. This is medical advice. This is legitimate medical advice, authoritative, coming from me, the source. Where do I get it? Look, I'm holding a phone, a smartphone. So if it's a smartphone, I'm smart. And therefore, you could not get COVID if you're TikTok dancing for George Floyd. Science. Well, it's been nice having you guys in a YouTube channel. Geez, I wonder if the CRTC is going to like that bit. Anyways, other than being 1000% serious that you cannot get COVID if you dance outside to a TikTok for George Floyd. If you do a BLM TikTok, it's, again, I'm not saying it gives you full immunities forever, just 1 month. You have to do one every month. The first of every month, pay your rent, TikTok dance for George Floyd. There you go. All right? Remember, put it in your calendar. Rent, TikTok. Okay? TikTok for George Floyd. Okay, now, where are we going? Okay, the COVID crowds. Yeah, it looks like the Democrats just have no nothing to do with freedom. Like, so you saw this with Joe Biden, and this is a big problem with COVID. Big problem is we politicized the pandemic, and it shouldn't have been. Okay, you know, whether you like it or not, like wearing masks and all this, it is not so much a health and safety thing as it is a political statement at this point. Like, you're wearing a mask outdoors, that's a political statement. Or you're like, paralyzed by the fear porn put out by the mainstream media. But for the most part, it's a political statement. Now, the big political statement that you saw is like Joe Biden was the only world leader wearing a mask in was it like a climate summit, something stupid. Like Putin was in the middle and Biden's on Zoom wearing a mask. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? Okay, this is silly. Okay, this is absolute silliness because you want people to take pandemic seriously. And the way you get at least half the population to not take it seriously is you mix up pandemic, reasoning and protocols with your own personal political ideology. So you have Joe Biden, who is there masked on a Zoom meeting. Come on, man. Right? So this is quite clearly virtue signaling, and this is signaling that Donald Trump wouldn't be wearing a mask, but I'm wearing a mask. Okay, look at me. I'm masking, right? Look at me. Now, you don't wear a mask when you're talking to other world leaders, especially on Zoom. Why? Because people don't trust people that they can't see their whole face. It's basic psychology. Like sometimes I'll watch some YouTubers. Like I like watching YouTubers with politics they disagree on, especially when it's topics that like fantasy books or whatever I just like feeling out the other side's opinion through miscellaneous things. And sometimes I'll see like other YouTubers, like they'll like not have their full head in the thing. Like, don't ever do this, right? Don't do this, because when I talk like this, you guys are thinking like, not subconsciously, but like, this, you're fine, it's fine. But when I'm like this, what your brain is doing right now is your brain's actually panicking. It's like, what does the top of his head look like? Now, you know what it looks like. You could fill it in. Okay, there's hair. It's fine. But just cutting off the little bit of your face, a little bit of your face being cut off, it has huge psychological effects on the people perceiving you. People like seeing other people's faces. We need it. We intuit a lot, right? A lot of language is nonverbal. Like a lot of what people get is like by body motions and special facial expressions when you're talking. This is why a lot of people, don't like audio podcasts, but can like watch them. There's a lot people miss by the faces people are making when they say things, right? And your body and your mind sort of craves it subconsciously. Like, when I'm like this, you're not going actual crazy. You're like, I get what he's saying. But your mind at some points is like, there's a trust factor that comes off. So when you are trying to talk to other world leaders, where you want to be taken seriously, you're taken less seriously if you're like this, right? A lot less people are going to, the trust, like it's a thing. This is basic, like people, I guess it's more of a baby face useful thing, Spears, but like people are more, if people can see your face, they are a lot more trusting of you. It's just the way human beings are wired. Animals are wired. We are more trusting of people. We could see their face. We perceive the intentions are open. No one would ever say this out loud. Like, oh, I would never trust anyone in a burqa. Like, no one would ever say that out loud. But if you're double blind study of like how much do you trust this person, it's some basic psychology. Okay, people want to see your whole face. Show them your face, okay? Especially if you're on Zoom. Now, I understand if this was a meeting done in person, but like Biden's been fully vaccinated. He's been fully vaccinated, and he's masked up on a Zoom meeting. Come on. And this is what drives people crazy. It really shows that Biden's not taking the science seriously. He's just signaling that look how good I am by having a mask, right? And I guarantee you, 25% of the population at least can intuit that they're saying, you know what? Masks aren't about protecting people from COVID. It's about signaling that you're better than us. So you know what? To counter signal that I'm not listening to Biden, I'm going to take off my mask right here. Okay. And let's say you want people wearing masks in appropriate situations. Your job as president then is to be in charge of the signaling. Your job is, hey, when I'm in a crowd of people, I'll put a mask on. Okay, fine. I get that. But when I'm alone in my room on a Zoom meeting, I take it off because it's not a holy symbol, right? It has uses for here. I love that one from Weird Al. Yes, but the poor fellow forgets frequently that he got vaccinated. That great Biden comment. You get a gold star. Gold star. That means you get kicked off the internet with me when Bill C10 goes in. So this is what we need, right? And this has been the problem with the science and the sort of the priests of science that we've had to deal with. And I call this priests of science because I love science. You copied my biology homework in high school, like, you know, that's how this relationship goes, right? You know, I got all the names of the animal kingdom. I got like over 90 on that test. So I do have an affinity for science, but I hate this sort of declaration of the science. And you see that stark as day in the COVID stuff, some of it in the climate stuff. But it becomes the COVID stuff where it's like, well, I believe in science and science is back. And it's like, you know what? The science says you're fully vaccinated. You can take your mask off in outdoors. And that's what people need to see. Like, people need to see that, you know what? If I am fully vaccinated, the science says I am actually a near non-factor at risk of getting and spreading the disease. And if I do get it, you know, hospital outcomes are like, also people who are vaccinated have much less severe COVID cases who then end up developing it. Like the numbers, you know, the anti-vaxxers aren't going to like this one, but the numbers around this COVID vaccine are actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. Now I'm not going to, we'll go into mandatory vaccines, vaccine passports later, but the numbers here are actually pretty good. And if we were a true champion of science, Joe Biden would be saying, hey, look at these numbers. They're actually pretty good. And what these numbers indicate, and the science indicates, is once you're fully vaccinated, you can get back to your life. And that's a good thing, right? We want this. Like, you know what? I would probably, because of the political sphere I'm in, if the numbers came back and said that, you know, vaccines are dangerous, if I were to go up and start telling people, here are the dangers of vaccines, you know, by going into that echo chamber, like, I could get much more subscribers doing that. I could, right? And, you know, I could bring up, and trust me, guys, like, I'm in enough Facebook groups, Telegram groups. I'm in it. I've seen all the information people, you know, I'm in the vaccine injuries Telegram chat. Like, I've seen it. Like, you get a rash, get soreness. There are side effects. I'm not denying any of that. And one of the things I hate, here's a rant of the pro-vaccine Facebook stuff. Here's the thing I hate. Like, it is so understood from the scientific community that there are side effects of this vaccine. Okay, I'll go back to my family of doctors. So my family got vaccinated before your family because I have my brother and his wife are doctors up in Yellowknife, and you know they got priority vaccines and Moderna, and it is well known that young people getting Moderna will have some side effects. My brother's arm was really sore after the first one. He couldn't play hockey. He felt kind of better after the second one. I had another cousin who had a pretty severe reaction, was sick for a few days. You know, I had other family members or doctors who got it who like weren't feeling well for a couple of days. And like the doctors in the family were asking, how was your symptoms? Like, this is something the doctors ask. Like, you got the vaccine. Oh, how are your symptoms? Are you feeling okay? It's just regularly understood. It doesn't mean the vaccines aren't working. It just means, hey, there's some symptoms to these mRNA vaccines. This is, you know, classic symptoms. The other ones, you know, there are symptoms. It's things we know. People tend to feel a bit ill after they get it. Some people have sore arms. There's, you know, my arm, I'm usually perfectly fine, like half an hour after a flu shot. Like, I can't even feel it, like whatever. That's probably not what happens in the COVID vaccines. You know, people tend to have some side effects here. Okay, let's understand that. Let's talk about it. Let's just acknowledge that, yes, you know, this is the risk reward channel of the vaccines, blah, 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 blah. But we can't even talk about that. You know, so the reason why people are so skeptical of these vaccines is because the scientific community has been lying. And it's not even the scientific community, let's say. The scientific community will say one thing, but then you have the elites, right? The Democrats, the liberals, and the media members who will quote science and talk about science, but not actually quote the science. We'll talk about science and then shut down. Like, if you want to say, well, there's actually lots of severe negative side effects of the Moderna vaccine that young people, it seems that old people who get the Moderna vaccine are actually quite fine, but young people who get the Moderna vaccine tend to be sick for a few days. Now, they usually get over it and it's, you know, less severe, but like, hey, this is something we should talk about. And then we should be like, yes, let's talk about it. But what's the risk and reward here? But no. Facebook shuts it down. You say Moderna vaccine, they actually say false information. The vaccines have been blah, 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 blah. Have been blah, 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 blah. Lots of testing. No side effects. And it's like, this is insane. This is insane because no doctor believes this. No doctor is saying this. Maybe some on the CBC, but no doctor is saying this. No doctor believes it. Right? They all know there's side effects. They'll just say, hey, the risk reward channel is, you know, it's better or not. So you have, and Mark's right. Get vaccinated and you get to keep your mask. Go out a bonus. Yeah, this is insane. The narrative needs to be, if you're fully vaccinated, the data shows that you can go outside, take off your mask. Now, if you're in a crowded indoor space, for now, leave your mask on until everyone's vaccinated. That would be something reasonable. You know, okay, I can understand them saying that. But, the fact that, okay, so here's the logic that frustrates here's what I hate. I guess I'm going into the vaccine stuff early in the middle of this, but when you're ranting, you gotta rant. Okay, here's what I hate, and I see this on both sides. Okay, and this is horrible logic. It's put out A, by the CDC, and B, by like the hardcore anti-vaccine community. Okay, and this is sort of the all or none logic, or the faulty probability logic. So the way it will manifest in sort of anti-vax logic, and you see this in the meme, is like, okay, I can not get the vaccine and still get COVID. Either if I don't get the vaccine, I'm still at the risk of COVID, but if I get the vaccine, I'm still at the risk of COVID. And then I also have the risk of the vaccine side effects. I could die of the vaccine. So what's the point of getting the vaccine? Now, the faulty logic here is that it implies that because there's two possible outcomes here, no, it's technically three, but because there's two possible outcomes here, they both have a 50% probability of happening. That's not true, okay? So this is bad logic, right? It's like you can get the vaccine, you can get COVID or you can not get COVID. This is not a binary, right? There's different odds to getting COVID. Let's say your current odds and where you live, your situation getting COVID are like, 35%, right? You get a vaccine, right? That's 90% effective. Now the odds of getting it are 3.5%. It's not zero, right? But the bad logic here treats them both as 50-50, right? When you get the vaccine, you reduce your risk of getting COVID. Now, there's also, if you get COVID, it's likely to be less bad. You balance this by the potential side effects of the vaccine. You get Moderna, and you're my age, your arm might be sore for a while, and you might feel really sick, like my cousin and his friends did. Okay? Those are your potential risks. But you do that, and then your risk of getting and spreading COVID are greatly reduced. And if you get COVID, your odds of hospitalization are way down. So that's the risk reward. It's reduction of risk, right? It's not everything's a 50-50. Certain things are not 50-50, and you're reducing it from 50 to 5%, right? Or, it doesn't stay 50-50. So just because risk is still there, it's not a total mitigation of risk. So this is the faulty probability being put out by the hardline anti-vaxxers. But I don't blame them for using this logic, because that's the same logic that the CDC and the Democrats and the guidelines have been using as well, right? It's, you got to, right? The same logic has been inverted, or I guess the anti-vaxxers inverted it. The same logic is being used by the CDC guidelines, circa 1 week ago, right? It was, even if you get the vaccine, well, there's still a risk of getting sick, therefore all the measures have to be in place. Right? It's like, no, like now, right, the risk has gone significantly down. And yes, just because there is a risk, there's a difference between you being at, let's say, 25% risk of COVID versus 2.5% risk. Those two different numbers of where your risk is needs to reevaluate the means. But because the CDC was going on the logic that because you're still at risk for COVID, all the rules need to apply, which means the only way we'd ever get out of this is to get to this net zero COVID, like the no COVID, which is impossible, okay? Guys, COVID's here to stay. It's not going away. It's a respiratory illness. It's an offshoot of the common cold. Like, COVID's here forever. There is, like, you want to just, one of those people to just lock it all down until it finally goes away, not going far enough to just everyone in your house completely for 2 weeks, no one do anything, and just 100% locked down till we get over COVID, and we'll be done COVID fine. Like, no, there is no zero COVID. It's not possible. Get out of your minds. It's not possible, even if we all follow the rules. And even if there are no dirty dissenters and protesters who are, even if we are 100% of us adhere to 100% of the guidelines, it will not get us to zero COVID, right? There's always been mitigation strategy. And that's what, like, again, this is the failure of the science, to be honest with you, is this is a mitigation strategy, right? And you cannot mitigate forever. Eventually, you have to confront the disease. So here we have, the COVID vaccines, which have shown to be some pretty decent efficacy here. I'm still in the camp where it's like, I'm not trying to cut the line for vaccines. I'm not spending 2 hours on the Ontario portal. I'm not lining up for the thing. When it's there, I'll go get it, okay? And I'm still on that. But from what I've seen in the data, and again, I have a lot of family members vaccinated, this isn't the murder vaccine. People aren't dying in droves because of the vaccine. The data is actually pretty good. Like, yes, there are symptoms. That's on you to take. Now, do I think there should be vaccine passports? Hell no. Do I think vaccines should be mandatory? Hell no. Right? Again, this is, if you want to still be, fear-mongering about the vaccine, like now your thing is really, the long-term effects of the mRNA vaccines. Now that's Pfizer, Moderna. If you're really afraid of like the gene editing and you don't want that, that's untested, then go for Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca. If you don't want them at all, fine, I get it, whatever. I'm not gonna fight you on it. That's my thing, right? But I'm just saying now, if you want to say, oh, it's a murder vaccine, like now I'm not listening because it's like, hey, this was untested. Let's see. It's been about 6 months and it's not a murder vaccine. Now, if you want to say, hey, there's long-term side effects built into the genome and it might sterilize you long-term, blah, 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 Bill Gates. Okay, fine. Long-term, like we don't know. Like, again, this is why I'm against mandatory vaccines, because we just don't know the long-term effects of the mRNA vaccines. I don't think it's ethical to mandate that someone take, the mRNA vaccines when we don't really, especially when there's no long-term data on this thing. So I'm against the mandatory vaccines. For the same reason I'm against vaccine passports, because it's sort of a backdoor mandatory vaccine. So I'm 100% against that. Will I say, should you get the vaccine? The data actually looks kind of good here. Now, do you not want the mRNA stuff? Then wait for the AstraZeneca. Also, like, do you need to get it right now? Probably not. If you're like, in your 60s, you have a asthma and you're overweight, yeah, you should probably get it. I do get it. Like, now the risk of COVID is actually very high to you. Like, go do it, homie. But again, nothing should be mandatory. And the vaccine passports, which Trudeau clearly wants. I mean, we're all conspiracy theorists when we talked about it originally, but now it's like conspiracy fact. Okay. So now my favorite thing to rant about, the Iran deal. Eventually, should we kill John Kerry? Not kill, execute. All right. So here's the story. Obama's former Secretary of State, John Kerry, former presidential candidate, he ran against Bush the second time. You might remember him from such things as, oh my God, this speech is really boring, and what's this old man talking about? That's John Kerry. So John Kerry, human snooze fest. Now, like the special envoy to climate, his job is to get in his job in the current Biden administration is to get on a private jet and lecture you on being bad people for flying around. His job is to get on a commercial. Sorry, his job is to get on a private jet and fly to country to tell you that you're bad people for flying commercial. Okay, that's his new job. Special climate envoy. Now, John Kerry was also a big proponent of the Iran deal, and now it's come out a leaked audio of Javad Zarif talking about the fact that John Kerry was actually keeping him informed on covert Israeli operations against Iran. Now, remember, if you watched the show for a while, I've kind of explained how the Israelis and the Americans and other allies were working in concert to counter Iran's influence and the Israelis and the Americans working together for mutual interest. They're allies. So sharing this information to an enemy about an ally about operations that affect American soldiers, because the Americans were in Iraq, neighboring Iran, where Iran was, I do think this is treason because it definitely undermines American security. So let's back up a bit. And one of the things I do hate is I hate the president who I didn't vote for is a war criminal nonsense. Listen, I think Obama undermined American interests globally, especially with the Iran deal. I think Obama was a terrible president when it came to foreign policy. I think he's actually, I call him the 21st century Neville Chamberlain. I think he's really, really bad. Like really, really bad. I think he's really, really bad at what he does. I thought he was a bit, Obama the candidate was great in 2008. Yay, hope and change. I was 17, guys. Come on, give me a break. But Obama the president was a divisive figure. But in that left-wing divisive way where you can say unity, I believe in unity. And everyone who doesn't believe in unity like me is evil. And we don't need unity with them. And the press be like, look, he's so unifying. And if you don't agree with Obama's policies, you're against unity. Are you against unity? And you're like, no, I want unity. I'm just against Obama's policies. You're not unifying the country. So this was gaslighting and drove everyone crazy. So, I have problems with Obama. And the Iran deal can be considered like the closest you can get to kind of treason. But I don't think Obama's a traitor. I don't think Obama's a war criminal. I don't think Bush is a war criminal. I think this conversation is unproductive because, it screams into the abyss and, trying a president like Obama for treason on one ground. Now, had there been leaked audio of, Barack Obama is actually openly, even the fact that Barack Obama is caught on a hot mic making concessions to Dmitry Medvedev, the vice president of Russia, if he wins the election, I don't even think that qualifies, as treason. I think it's horrible, but I have a pretty high bar. Okay, so I think Obama was horrible. I don't think he's a traitor. And I think saying Obama is a traitor really undermines you, because right now is a point where we actually need to have a conversation of John Kerry is a traitor and he needs to be on trial. He should spend the rest of his days behind prison, but I do think the death penalty should be on the table. I do think the legal system, and there should be a serious conversation in the media and in the courts of should John Kerry be put to death for betraying America. And I think this is a very serious, heavy conversation. I don't want to see anyone die, but what he did, if it's true, and this, the New York Times is reporting this, and this is a hot mic with Javad Zarif, but if John Kerry was giving covert intelligence on American allies to America's enemies about operations in the area where American troops are, that's treason. He put American lives and interests in danger to further himself. So again, like people will say, like, Justin Trudeau's a traitor. I hate the man. I hate what he's doing to our country. Is he a traitor? No, this doesn't fit treason. I don't think Justin Trudeau is a traitor. I think he's a fool. I think he's an arrogant fool. I think he's undermining the country. But treason's a heavy word. Right now, if there's a leaked audio of Justin Trudeau, selling out Canadian and American military secrets to for Iran's vote at its UN Security Council seat, yeah, then hang him for treason, okay? But it's a high bar, all right? Treason's a high bar. And John Kerry has actually met that bar. He's claiming, and the Javad Zarif, the propaganda minister of Iran, is basically saying he was giving us, covert intelligence about Israeli operations, or giving it to an Iranian official, giving an American enemy, military information about an American ally in a region where there are American troops. Yeah, that's treason. Now, I don't think he should be executed. Now, a reason that it's very serious, so there should be talking about the death penalty here, but I don't want to see him executed because, one, I think it's counterproductive. I think it risks turning him into a martyr. I think actually sending him into prison where it's like, this guy is living in the lap of luxury. Just how Biden's profiting off the Biden name. Kerry's been profiting off the Kerry name. He probably has kids on the board of whatever. It might not be Burisma, it might be something else. But was he on Burisma? That was Romney and Pelosi. It might have been Kerry too. So he's profiting off the John Kerry name. He's profiting off the fact, he's doing all this nonsense stuff. I think the fact that John Kerry goes to jail, so the rest of his day in jail, would be a strong enough message that really sends a deterrent message. I think if you kill him, I think you would get the conversation confused around what he did, and it would just look like, well, I guess Trump's not the president, so it wouldn't look like a vindictive move, but you risk martyring the Iran deal, which is a big problem. So here's everyone's favorite point of the week. Like, will Daniel do another rant on the Iran deal? I've already heard it 4 times, but I need to hear it a 5th. Boom. So the other fascinating thing from this leaked tape from Javad Zarif is he's openly talking about how desperate Iran was for sanction relief and to get in the Iran deal. So you see Iran beating their chest, rah, 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 rah. We don't need America. They need us to get in the Iran deal. Like, we have all the leverage here. Blah, 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 blah. BS. Total BS. Iran has no leverage. No leverage. Trump was great. Put him in a great position, which is down in the mud. And Bush and sanctions had them nearly bent over the barrel. And I've talked about this before. My friends in Iran were telling me the Ayatollah was playing around with the term called heroic flexibility. They were going to cave to American demands. And they even started to test the phrase called heroic flexibility, where they're going to bend over and take it from America. Hell yeah, America. Now, the problem is, America had Iran in a bind. Then they came up with this Iran deal. And this is where, it's borderline. So here's the Iran deal. They got $158 billion opened up. Now, because of this, they were allowed to develop ballistic missile technology. So in 8 years, under the Iran deal, Iran would have the ability to create and use ballistic missiles. So that's missiles that can go forward and bomb whoever they want. Then 10 years, they're allowed to start enriching uranium. And then at 20 years, they could start using that enriched uranium in weapons-grade capacity. So they have the missiles to attach a warhead to, and nuclear warheads to attach it to. And then at the 20-year mark, they were allowed to blow up whoever they wanted. And, kicker, the American government, the American army, was contractually obligated to protect Iran if any foreign actor tried to destroy their nuclear program. That means if at 20 years Iran says, haha, we have the nukes, we're going to use them to blow up Israel, like they said they were going to do. So here we have the missiles, we have the nukes, and we're going to use these nukes to blow up Israel. America would be contractually obligated if the Israelis tried to destroy the nuclear reactors in Iran like they did in Iraq in 1978. America would be obligated to stop Israel from blowing up Iran's nuclear arsenal, which Iran would explicitly want to use on Americans' allies. Crazy town. Absolutely crazy town. Now, the idiots, anyone who talks about the Iran deal, they'll talk about international monitoring. So the thing that America got out of the deal, so America gets nothing out of the deal. Nothing. But what they're telling you America got out of the deal was the ability to monitor Iran and diplomatic ties, right? So Iran is actually contained. We could contain their nuclear ambitions. Here's the stupidest thing about it. So this is an international, weapon monitoring deal. So the way weapons inspections usually work, you think of how they work, right? A international weapons inspector will come in, and they'll come in on a random date, and they'll go to a facility they think there might be nuclear weapons, and they'll inspect it, and they'll go through and see if there are weapons there. That's how they work. Surprise inspections at random designated times from international weapons inspector. That's how you inspect weapons. If you agree to a deal, that's how it usually works. Not under the Iran deal. Because remember, the Iran deal gives America and the international community the ability to monitor Iran. And don't worry, Iran never broke its commitments on the nuclear deal. The way the weapons monitoring worked under the Iran deal is Iran gets to be notified in advance. They get significant notice of when a weapons inspector is coming. So they'll be like, Iran, we want to monitor you. We're sending a weapons inspector this February 25th. All right, and Iran's like, okay, February 25th, 2022 is when the weapons inspector is coming. Bonus, not only does Iran get forewarning when the weapons inspector is coming, but they also get to choose where the weapons inspector looks, or more where he can't look. So yeah, that's right. There's no surprise inspections, and Iran can mandate that there are certain places where weapons inspectors can't look. And the international community never found any violations by the Iran deal. Iran must be the nicest, most beautiful place in the world. What essentially is the way I always describe the Iran deal is, guys, I'm proposing a game called hide and seek to the death. Okay? Now, the way this works is you have to pay me $158 billion to play the game. All right? So you pay me $158 billion to play. Now, what we do is you come to my house or I go to your house, doesn't matter. So let's say I go to your house. Or it's more like you come to my house, right? So you pay me $158 million, you come to my house. It's a game of hide and seek to the death. Okay, here are the rules. I win, you die. We nuke the world, right? I blow up the world. You win, you don't die, okay? But you still have to pay me $158 billion, okay? So if I win, everyone dies. If you win, you don't die, okay? Now, we're going to play a game called hide and seek to the death. Here are the rules. You count to 30, close your eyes, and I will hide in a room in the house. And if you find me, you win. But before you enter any room in my house, you have to text message me saying, I am about to go into this room. Is that okay? If I say it's not okay, you cannot go into that room, okay? And if I do say it's okay, you're allowed to look in that room, all right? And if you can find me in the next 24 hours or whatever, you win. But if you can't find me, you lose. And by the way, you're not allowed to violate the rules. So you're not allowed to go into a room. I'd say, like, I've checked every room, but I haven't checked the bedroom upstairs. Can I go into the master bedroom? Nope. Well, I guess I can't go into the master bedroom. Oh, where could he be? Where could the nukes be? This is how stupid the Iran deal was. They could literally be forewarned, and there could be like a room basically saying nuclear weapons here, skull and crossbones, nuclear hazard sign. And the Iranians could be like, yeah, you're not allowed to look in there. But you can look in the swimming pool. Oh, look, in the Ayatollah's swimming pool, there's no nuclear weapons here. I guess they're not violating the deal. La-da-da. So this is the nonsense that Ben Rhodes, Barack Obama, and John Kerry sold to you as a great diplomatic achievement. This nonsense. And you wonder why the Iranians are so desperate to get into the Iran deal and get back into it, even though they're pretending that, oh, America needs us, because they know how stupid the left is. They know how stupid you are. They know how stupid the Washington Post is and their readership. They know that if they just make noise, rah, 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 oh, you'll never get us back into the Iran deal. Why would we ever go back into the Iran deal? Because you make billions of dollars off of it and it gives you everything you've ever wanted. But all you have to do is pretend, play hard to get, you'll never get us back into the Iran deal. And then the American public, segments of it would be so willing to bend over backwards. Oh, we have to get them back into the Iran deal because the Washington Post and Ben Rhodes tell us it's the only way to contain Iran. It's absolute nonsense. It's absolute BS nonsense, and I hate it. Right? So that's my ranting on the Iran deal. So, you can understand, that's like borderline treason, like just signing the Iran deal. But even I don't call Obama treasonous for that. And this is also why I call the Iran deal World War II, World War III. It basically lets like there will be World War III because even if you take the nuke the world part out of it, it still gives Iran the ability to develop ballistic missile tech, so high-grade missile tech, in 8 years. And if they do have that high-grade missile tech, Iran what they do, according to the Quds Force, like their own internal documents, their job is to spread chaos throughout the world and conquer the world, starting with the Arab world. So the Arab countries and Israel know that if they get ballistic missile tech, they're going to give it to the Houthis, right? And like, this is Yemen. It's right on Saudi Arabia's ass, right? Right on Saudi Arabia's ass near Africa. If these people, right, get high-grade missiles, they can fire them at Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's capital. Do you really think the Saudis are just going to let that happen? You think that won't escalate the war in Yemen? You think Oman's not going to then have to get involved because they're bordering a bunch of crazy terrorists with ballistic missiles? And the Houthis are friggin' nuts. And Biden, old, lazy, senile Obama, he took the Houthis off the terrorist watch list. What have the Houthis done? They started blowing things up. They started getting worse. They started planting fake missile sites in kindergartens to entice the Allied forces to bomb them. Right? This is the Houthis actually have like Hitler in their curriculum. Not as like the Holocaust was bad. They're like, at least they're not Holocaust. It's like maybe they done some Holocaust, but they're like, no, the Holocaust is good because Hitler murdered lots of Jews, and we're going to murder even more Jews. But finally, Jews were just exiled from Yemen under the Houthis. So you think these people should be having ballistic missile tech? You think all the Christian murders in Africa, like half of the murders in Africa, it's either the Muslim Brotherhood or it's the Iranians funding the murders and the terrorists running around Africa killing Christians. Like, what could go wrong by giving Iran high-grade ballistic missile tech? Like, that will set off World War III in itself. It's not just the nukes in 20 years. It's the ballistic missile tech in 8 years. It's absolutely insane. And the fact that John Kerry is now leaking classified information to the Iranians, if this is true, he needs to be on trial for treason and potentially face a death penalty. All right, so that's been tonight's show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you need a VPN, go to NordVPN. It will help you get around Trudeau's Bill C-10 if that does pass. If you want to see the internet how it's meant to be, not how the Canadians get it, you're going to need a VPN. You're going to need to pretend you're in a free country like America. And if that falls, who knows? If you want to support me, you can click the GoFundMe or the Patreon below. Every dollar spent on me makes Aaron O'Toole's lawyers' heads explode. Literally, I've made 3 heads explode at the law firm of blank, 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 and blank, because if I say their names, I'm going to get an email from Jonathan Blank. Oh no, Mr. Boardman is crazy. He's saying all these things. Da, 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 da. Please, if you're putting this in the legal format, I want it to say Mr. Boardman in poor South African accent says, no, Mr. Boardman is crazy. No, 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 no. Please note his arms are flailing around like an idiot. Okay. Thank you. That made me feel better. I'm definitely going to see that in a legal document, and I'm going to laugh hysterically. All right. That's been me. I've been you. You've been me. This is the show that you watch every Wednesday, and if you don't, Iran will nuke the world. So I will see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. And also the TNT Live will be tomorrow night. So I'll see you again if you're coming in Thursday, 9 p.m. Wyatt and I will be talking with Frank Vaughn, who does some pretty excellent work on the Ube of Twos. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. So I'll see everyone either tomorrow or next week or